Caitlin Clark officially done for the 2025 WNBA season, as she and the Fever announced on social media. The Fever and Clark saying that she tried to get back on the floor. It appears that she just ran out of time, not able to get enough confidence back in her body as the season wraps up and the playoffs are likely about to begin for Indiana.
Caitlin Clark is officially out for the season, and it's not just a tough break for her, it's a disaster for the WNBA. Fans were strung along with vague day-to-day updates. Ticket sales skyrocketed on the promise of her return, and now, refund requests are pouring in. How did the league's golden goose, the one player driving ratings and attendance, end up sidelined with a string of cascading injuries that looks more like mismanagement than bad luck? And more importantly, why did the Fever and WNBA keep feeding? And tell us, can the Fever actually make the playoffs without her? Let's go.
Caitlin Clark out for the remainder of the 2025 season, something we all think we knew was coming after what Stephanie White said earlier today. We couldn't be too sure until we see it for ourselves. And with this announcement from the GOAT's mouth herself, Caitlin Clark won't be returning this season, nor if the Indiana Fever make the playoffs.
Her sophomore year unraveled almost from the start, and what followed was the injury saga nobody wanted to believe. The pattern is easier to see now with the timeline laid out clearly. In May, she first dealt with quad tightness that forced her to sit out a preseason game. On May 24th, just 4 games into the regular season, she strained the same left quad and had to miss multiple games. By late June, a left groin strain added to the list. Then came the breaking point. July 15th, a right groin injury in the final minute of a game that ended her campaign. And just when fans thought the worst was over, August brought news of a bone bruise in her left ankle during rehab. What was supposed to be Clark's breakout sophomore season dissolved into one shutdown after another until she had appeared in only 13 games all year.
I mean, it's a gut punch that basically encompasses an entire season of them. The Fever have lost so many players to injury, but obviously none bigger than Clark. And there was such a wait for this second season after her magnificent rookie season. And then, you know, the anticipation of her possibly coming back, only for that not to happen, takes a lot of air out of the room, obviously takes a lot of energy out of the fans, and is a devastating blow for not just the Fever and the WNBA.
Each stop along that timeline carried its own frustration. The team consistently labeled her injuries as day-to-day, language that kept audiences optimistic. That phrase suggested a quick turnaround and allowed hope and ticket sales to carry on. But the reality was more complicated. When she returned from the quad strain, she was clearly limited. Her minutes were managed, her efficiency dipped, and she looked like a player trying to find rhythm without ever being fully healthy. Observers noticed. Public reporting and fan reactions started to question whether her returns were rushed, even as coach Stephanie White told reporters the Fever were using their West Coast trip as a chance to evaluate her progress. White also explained Clark hadn't been doing much contact work, a detail that hinted she was still far from 100%.
As well, because Caitlin Clark fans, I want to say Fever fans, but at this point, so many of you, including myself, has lost faith in everybody involved in leadership and in management and coaching. We've just sort of, I got to tell you, I don't have any more real good things to say about the Fever organization as of now, because I will contend that they have known this was going to happen and they did not want to tell anybody.
That's where the concern about overcompensation emerged. When one area isn't healed, the body shifts the load elsewhere, setting the stage for another breakdown. It's like patching a leaky pipe without fixing the pressure behind it. Eventually, the system cracks again. Clark's groin injury was a textbook example of that progression. Stress shifted from the quad into the surrounding muscles, and the cycle continued. Meanwhile, the messaging remained oddly upbeat. Fans saw glimpses, Clark jogging lightly in practice, taking some warm-up shots, even laughing with teammates, and it reinforced the sense she was right on the verge of returning. Local outlets echoed team statements saying she wasn't far from playing again. But specialists know that quad and groin injuries linger, and recoveries that quick rarely hold. The visible optimism clashed with the more sobering reality, creating a loop where each promised comeback only deepened the disappointment once another setback came.
Clark, a two-time All-Star and the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year, has been sidelined suffering a right groin injury during the Fever's 87-77 win over the Connecticut Sun on July 15th. If you guys remember that game, Caitlin Clark put the team on her back in the winding minutes to give the Indiana Fever that lead. Clark also suffered a bone bruise at a later date during her recovery process.
The moment everything collapsed was July 15th. In the final minute of a game, Clark went down with another groin injury, this time to the right side, and that sealed her season. From there, the picture became even clearer. She had been struggling to get through months of rehab and partial comebacks that never gave her body the chance to fully reset. The ankle bruise that followed during her rehab process felt like insult added to injury, a reminder of how fragile the situation had become. Fans finally stopped believing the careful updates and understood that she had been pushing through a compromised season all along.
Caitlin has worked so hard throughout this time, doing everything possible to recover and return to the court, but ultimately, time is not on our side, said Indiana Fever COO and GM Amber Cox. While we will continue working with Caitlin and provide her with every resource we have available, there is not enough time left in our season for her to safely return, and her long-term health and well-being remains our top priority. We are looking forward to having her back at full strength to start the 2026 season. Clark appeared in 13 games during the regular season, averaging 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, while helping lead the team to the 2025 WNBA Commissioner's Cup title.
Her own words stripped away any remaining illusions. She admitted she spent disappointed isn't a big enough word. That raw honesty hit harder than any team press release. Clark had poured every bit of effort into salvaging her season, while the public narrative made it sound like she was on the verge of being fine. In the end, the truth was simple. A string of injuries piled up, took her off the court, and left the Fever without the one player who had reshaped the league's relevancy in real time.
And this is what Caitlin wrote. I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling. I want to thank everyone who had my back through all the uncertainty. This has been incredibly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. The way fans continue to show up for me in the Fever brought me so much joy and important perspective. I'm so proud of how this team has only gotten stronger through the adversity this year. Now it's time to close out the season and claim our spot in the playoffs.
And there's one more layer to this. As Clark's injuries piled up, many couldn't help but notice the physical toll she absorbed every single game. The league promoted her as the new face of women's basketball, yet her body broke down under constant pressure. Fans began asking a harder question. If she was already dealing with this many setbacks, why did it seem like no one was protecting her on the floor? That's where frustration shifted from injuries themselves to the way she was treated on the court, and the lack of help from referees who watched it happen. That frustration spilled over into something bigger. The debate about how Caitlin Clark was being officiated and how the league chose to handle its brightest star. This is the story of bullying on the court, referees under the microscope, and the gamble the WNBA made with its golden goose.
Well, it all started last year, in her rookie season, where she received 20% of all the flagrant fouls in the league. And most of them came from Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. And these weren't basketball plays. They were not only fouling her, but they were getting up, laughing about it, laughing about Caitlin Clark getting assaulted. Any other work environment, people go to jail for what's going on.
Many fans and media voices began pointing to a troubling pattern. Clark was taking heavy contact, but the whistle wasn't consistent. Observers argued the officiating never seemed to adjust to protect a marquee player. Every nationally televised game seemed to feature moments where hard fouls went uncalled, and social media lit up with the same question. Why is the league's most visible star absorbing so much punishment without protection?
Urge DOJ and FTC to investigate WNBA's misleading practices. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. So we are here now. We are here now. And what's crazy about all of this is that, guys, this is I'm not going to come on here and say that they're going to lose. Because if there was an investigation going into this team, they're not going to lose this investigation. Oh, they're going to win. Whoever is representing Caitlyn is going to win.
It wasn't speculation out of nowhere. There were receipts, clips of Clark being hit, shoved, and outright bullied each and every time she steps on the court. Plays like that fueled the outrage. Fans paused their feeds and replayed those sequences in slow motion, pointing out slaps across the arm, shoulders lowered into her chest, and physical play that appeared well beyond letting them play. For commentators, highlight shows, and even casual viewers, it became not just about basketball, but about whether officials were treating Clark differently.
And last year, I noticed how much it was just Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was taking all the hits. Caitlin Clark was taking all the abuse. But this year they've added Sophie Cunningham. She gets more flagrant fouls on her than anybody in the league besides Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston, she's been taking hits as well. But the worst thing is the consistency. So they don't call flagrant fouls, or most of the time, Caitlin Clark could be held for an entire game at a time. They don't call fouls. They don't call common fouls.
This wasn't only about fairness, though. It had real consequences. Unchecked physical play meant more stress on a body that was already dealing with quad and groin troubles. Combined with the hits she took in live action, plus the later setback of an ankle bruise during rehab, the buildup created an environment where a season-ending collapse became more likely. We don't have proof of a deliberate cover-up, but the pattern of opaque communication and vocal public outrage is undeniable.
They play against Breanna Stewart. She goes to the line 14 times. Asia Wilson goes to the line 13 times. And Aaliyah Boston can't play 20 minutes in a game without being on the bench in foul trouble. That's another problem that we're dealing with. But like I said, this year, it's not just Caitlin Clark. If you wear that Indiana Fever jersey, consider it done. The refs are not going to be fair, and they are going to cheat and do whatever it takes to do what the higher-ups say.
Critics also tied the narrative back to commercial decisions. The Fever and the league kept labeling Clark's status as day-to-day, even as weeks stretched into months. At the same time, sold-out road games went forward, arenas expanded to meet demand, and tickets soared in price. When Clark was officially ruled out, frustration erupted because fans felt they were promised something they'd never realistically get. The perception formed that commercial interests, the guarantee of full seats and national ratings, were treated as a higher priority than clear, transparent updates about her actual health.
For the last 2 weeks, Stephanie White knew where this was going to end up. I would say for the last month or so, they kind of had a feeling where this was going to go. The main issue, another day-to-day injury that turns into a season ender. Another day-to-day injury that turns into a season ender. And if you don't call that a lack of transparency, I don't know what to call that.
That perception matters. Take a step back, and you see how the conflicting storylines fueled mistrust. Glowing marketing about Clark as a generational star on one side, visible punishment on the court, and vague injury timelines on the other. Fans connected the dots, concluding that officials downplayed severity while referees swallowed whistles, all to sustain the league's short-term boom. Whether or not intent can be proven, the credibility hit is real. And for the WNBA, credibility is everything right now. Clark's presence meant surging ticket sales, higher TV ratings, and buzz that rivaled men's coverage for the first time in years. Losing her, not just to injury but amid a public storm of criticism, was exactly the scenario the league couldn't afford. Now broadcasts face dimming spotlights, playoff races feel flatter, and the Fever's title hopes evaporated as fast as the announcement dropped.
They could have easily said 2 months, 1 to 2 months, be evaluated in the next 6 weeks. Instead, they played this day-to-day, game-time decision, probable, questionable nonsense for the last 8 weeks. And that is why fans are so pissed off for the most part. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I know if they were upfront and didn't BS us, people wouldn't be that angry at the organization, at least not as angry as they are now.
So that leaves the question hanging in the air. With Clark sidelined and the Golden Goose gamble backfiring, what happens next to the team built around her? The attention now shifts directly to the Indiana Fever and whether they can keep their season alive without the player who transformed them into a national draw overnight. Right now, the pressure couldn't be higher. The Fever sit at 21 wins and 20 losses and are fighting to hold on to the 8th and final playoff spot with just 3 games left. The Los Angeles Sparks are only a game and a half behind, which means every possession down the stretch could decide whether Indiana extends its season or watches from home. Without Caitlin Clark, the challenge has shifted from hype and headlines to pure survival.
The Fever's still likely to make it into the playoffs, and I do continue to credit their resilience and what they've put up with and what they're capable of, and they will go down swinging when they do eventually go down, because I just don't think they have the talent to stay up at this point. But I mean, Caitlin Clark said it, disappointed is not a big enough word. And I feel it's fair to say that, you know, for any right-minded person, that's the word on everybody's mind, getting the news that CC's season is indeed done.
That urgency has forced the roster to rely on its remaining leaders. Kelsey Mitchell has become the engine of the offense and keeping Indiana afloat with her scoring. She's the veteran who knows how to steady a half-court set or create points when nothing else is working. Aaliyah Boston, 2-time All-Star, has done the same inside. She's the anchor in the paint, rebounding, defending, and demanding double teams that create opportunities for others. Role players have also stepped into bigger moments. Lexi Hull has carved out her place by defending on the perimeter and setting a physical tone that gives Indiana an edge. Sophie Cunningham's shooting and toughness on the wing provide stability when games slip into chaos. These players may not light up box scores every night, but they've been called stabilizers by coach Stephanie White, exactly what a team in playoff contention needs in Clark's absence.
It's unfortunate that we were robbed of Caitlin Clark's sophomore season. She came out with a triple-double against the Chicago Sky. Triple-double first game of the season. Returns from injury, 32 points against the New York Liberty. The best 45 seconds in the WNBA this year. Pull up 3, bang. Pull up 3, bang. Pull up 3, bang. 9 points in 40 seconds.
The Fever have also leaned on practical roster moves to hold things together. Hardship contracts and veteran signings, like bringing in experienced players like Odyssey Sims, Chloe Bibby, Ari McDonald, and Shea Petty, have helped plug gaps, especially when fatigue or foul trouble stretch the rotation thin. Those signings were never about star power, but about giving White the flexibility to keep her team competitive when depth became an issue. It's not glamorous, but it's part of what has allowed Indiana to stay in the chase with the Sparks closing ground. All of that has required strong direction from White herself. She's had to shuffle lineups, adapt roles, and keep her players believing they're capable of more than just surviving Clark's absence. Her emphasis on collective responsibility has prevented the season from unraveling. Instead of leaning on one player, she's highlighted the pieces that, together, still form a roster with a chance to fight their way into the postseason. The story isn't about replicating what Clark brought. It's about finding new ways to compete. Mitchell's scoring, Boston's strength inside, Hull's defense, and Cunningham's toughness have made Indiana stubborn in games they could have folded. Add in the reinforcements from hardship contracts, and the Fever are still putting themselves in position to define their year on their own terms.
This is on your head, Kathy Engelbert, and the rest of the WNBA Players Association executive leadership who failed to hold officials and players accountable for the barbaric style of play the Fever and Caitlin Clark have had to endure this year. Kathy, resign.
If Indiana manages to make the playoffs, it won't be because the schedule fell their way or because opponents underestimated them. It will be because veterans stepped up, role players refused to disappear, and the team built a foundation in the middle of chaos. That's a payoff worth watching. Proof that even without their star, the Fever still have the resilience to matter in the postseason conversation. But this season is not just about Indiana's ability to adapt. It's about what Clark's injury revealed on a larger scale. As the Fever push through their final stretch, the entire league is left facing the bigger question of what went wrong, and what this moment says about the WNBA's handling of its brightest player. For many fans, this season feels like evidence that the league and team communications broke down when it came to player health. The frustration is real, but the Fever's front office maintains Clark's long-term well-being was always the top priority. As Fever General Manager Amber Cox put it, the organization is looking forward to having Clark back at full strength in 2026. A clear signal that recovery, not short-term gains, will guide the path forward. In the meantime, players like Mitchell, Boston, Hull, and Sims keep carrying the fight, proving Indiana still has a heartbeat. So now it's your turn. Drop a supportive message for Caitlin Clark in the comments and tell us, can the Fever actually make the playoffs without her? Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.